Good morning, my name is Dr. Ianto Guy and I'm a Principal Consultant with TRL. And in this presentation I wanted to take a look at what might be heading our way in the world of micromobility. Steve Jobs said this is the most amazing piece of technology since the PC. Thought that this could be transformational, change the way that cities might be designed. He was talking, of course, about the Segway, and we all know what happened to that. So I show this slide really to say, well, it's quite difficult to see what might be coming in the future, and even the best of us might get it wrong. Technological development tends to happen in two phases. A revolutionary phase in which some new fundamental technology changes the way that the world operates and changes the capability of humans, and an evolutionary phase in which that new technology is gradually adopted into the marketplace and enables the delivery of new services. Wilbur and Orville Wright were bicycle mechanics from Dayton, Ohio. When they first demonstrated their heavier-than-air aeroplane in 1903, they were building on a series of technological revolutions that had happened in the preceding decades, not least the development of the lightweight petrol engine, which enabled them to build an aircraft with sufficient power to get off the ground. The revolution in aviation continued, spurred on not least by two world wars, and inventions like the jet engine enabled aircraft to fly higher and faster and further. So just 46 years separate that first flight by the Wright brothers and the first jet airliner, the de Havilland Comet. But from the 1950s onwards, the aviation industry entered a period of evolution rather than revolution, in which it remains today, so that the fundamental capability of modern civil aircraft is little changed from that 1949 Comet. And while there have been innovations, like the 1969 Concorde, those have failed to have a fundamental effect on the way that the market functions, so that, for example, the 2005 A380 fundamentally does the same job in the same way that was being done by the Comet back in 1949. And it should be noted that the A380 has gone out of production, so even that market change has really failed to keep pace with the modern market. So what then of the micromobility industry? I show here an image of the ever-ready Autoped, shot here in 1915, so more than 100 years ago. And as you can see, the basic layout of the vehicle is identical to a modern e-scooter. The difference, of course, is that the Autoped uses, at the time, a revolutionary lightweight petrol engine. But fundamentally, there is no difference between the ever-ready Autoped from more than 100 years ago and a modern e-scooter. So in 2018, when Scoot introduced their e-scooters into San Francisco, the fundamental change that had happened was not anything to do with vehicle technology, it was to do with the usage model of the vehicle. And that usage model, the free floating rental model, had come about because of the invention of the mobile telephone, which enabled people to make mobile payments and consequently enabled that new business model. In essence, though, the 2018 Scoot and the 1915 Autoped are effectively identical vehicles. Their size, their plan, their function, the speeds and powers that they have are very similar, if not identical. So the question is, what's coming next? We know it's not the Segway, and it might be informative to think about the reasons why the Segway failed when the e-scooter has been such a roaring success. Segway, of course, was an enormously technologically advanced product, and perhaps well ahead of its time. 2001 is a very different time to 2023, but it failed in the market, and it failed in the market for a number of reasons. Not least, it was too expensive for that market, but also the market didn't like it. The market didn't think it was cool, whereas e-scooters are cool. The enablers that brought about the Segway are the same as the enablers that brought about the e-scooter: small, lightweight, high power density batteries and small, highly efficient electric motors. But the Segway was also dependent on a highly complex control system in order to keep itself upright, whereas e-scooters have the same level of technology as a battery drill. But are there any fundamental technological changes on the horizon that might really revolutionize the micromobility industry in the same way that, say, the invention of the jet engine revolutionized the aviation industry? Well, the answer is not really. We're going to see small incremental changes in battery technology and motor technology, which will, for example, improve the power density of batteries, enabling a better range. We'll see batteries with a longer life and probably improved recyclability. But none of that is going to have a really fundamental effect on the nature of the micromobility industry. We're also going to see small incremental changes in the design of existing vehicles. So, for example, scooters with 3 or 4 wheels. We already, of course, have a broad range of single-wheel vehicles, both unicycle format and one-wheel skateboard format. But none of that fundamentally changes the nature of micromobility. In the aviation industry, the revolution that happened was all about carrying more stuff further and faster. And there is, of course, a natural limitation in micromobility to how much we can do with that. But we're likely to see an increase in the carrying capacity of some vehicles. We already see things like e-scooters being used for deliveries. There are hordes of delivery drivers using e-scooters in most major cities. And of course, e-scooters are fundamentally not really suitable for that purpose. So it's reasonably foreseeable that we might see cargo e-scooters coming to the market fairly soon. We're already seeing the manufacturers of private e-scooters, particularly those who are coming across from the automotive industry, offering a range of big wheel scooters and taking steps to improve the stability and the usability of the e-scooter. I mentioned in the previous slide that the fundamental technological change that had enabled Scoot to develop their rental scooter offer in San Francisco was the development of the mobile phone and the widespread adoption of smartphones enabling mobile payment to be made. And we may see other technological changes not directly related to the micromobility industry that will bring about other changes. In the automotive industry, safety is being revolutionized by the adoption of smart technologies and the adoption of advanced driver assistance systems into regulations. So, for example, automated emergency braking systems and automated lane keep assistance is having a real effect on reducing the number of accidents that cars have on the road. By their very nature, it is harder to apply advanced driver assistance systems to micromobility vehicles, of course. There's less space, they're cheaper, there's less power available for processing. But I think we'll see in the next few years a number of innovations around collision avoidance and improved stability based on carrying advanced processing power on the vehicle. The combination of smaller, lighter and cheaper sensors, improved processing power, which is less energy intensive, will also bring about safety improvements like smart systems to prevent pavement riding. Some manufacturers and rental scooter operators are already experimenting with LiDAR and camera-based systems that are much more accurate than GPS-based systems for preventing pavement riding, and also to enforce parking restrictions and to ensure that scooters are parked appropriately. In the automotive world, we're also seeing a great deal of work being done on automation and the development of automated and indeed autonomous vehicles. And while the two-wheeler industry has tended to lag behind in terms of its adoption of technology, the intersection of technology going into unmanned ground vehicles, and unmanned aerial vehicles and micromobility vehicles seems a sweet spot for development. So the technology that goes into parcel delivery robots could easily also go into micromobility devices and, for example, develop self-redistributing micromobility vehicles, e-scooters that go and take themselves back to the depot for charging, or e-scooters that redistribute themselves around town to account for the morning and evening rush hours. We should also perhaps consider the positive effect that micromobility could have for the whole transport industry in acting as a test bed for new technologies. The automotive industry tends to be enormously conservative in its adoption of technologies, and rightly so, but the micromobility industry, with smaller, lighter, and inherently less dangerous vehicles, perhaps offers the opportunity for the testing and development of some interesting new technologies. For example, the adoption of variable speed limitation, so that, for example, you could have a different speed limit in town and out of town, or in different areas of town. That has tremendous application for automotive vehicles, for cars and vans, but is unlikely to be trialled in those industries until it's been well proven. And perhaps micromobility offers us the opportunity to do that testing in a real world environment. So on to my closing thoughts about what might be coming. The basic configuration of the powered scooter hasn't changed in over 100 years, and we're unlikely to see very significant changes in its configuration at any time in the next few decades. The e-scooter in its current form is probably here to stay. We are, however, likely to see a number of refinements based on the adoption of smart technologies into micromobility, which will improve the safety of those vehicles by improving their collision avoidance and their stability. And we're also likely to see augmentation to existing business models through the adoption of automated technology, perhaps allowing those scooters to redistribute themselves around town. I think we're also likely to see refinements to the current configuration of the e-scooter to improve its ability to carry loads and carry passengers. But for the moment, I don't see any revolutions on the horizon. The Segway is dead. Long live the e-scooter.